Good morning, Unity and Mesa. Welcome. And I'm so glad to have you join us. I'm Reverend Judy Hildebrand, and today Floyd Land will be joining us to offer the meditation, and Katie and Andrew Seiferth will be our musicians, and we're so blessed to have all of them with us today. Our affirmation this morning is, I am a spiritual being choosing an awakened experience. We all have free will, so we get to choose a lot of things. We get to choose our experience here. So can you affirm that with me by saying it with me at home, saying it after me at home? I am a spiritual being choosing an awakened experience. And let's say the whole thing together. I am a spiritual being choosing an awakened experience. And let's take that into prayer. And we breathe into that space in our heart where we have that awakening experience, where we see and experience those things that happen around us from a different perspective, where our soul dances for joy. And as we do this, we are able to open our hearts up and to share that awakened experience, to share that awakened energy with others in the community, others in our families, and our groups of friends, and send that forth beyond even that into the greater world community. And that energy is enlightening, that energy is healing, that energy is divine, and it moves in and through each and every body, tapping into the innate healing power of the cells in the body. And we share this as we awaken, we share that energy with the world. And we are glad to be of service through our sharing and through our ability to help others heal, whether it's physical healing, whether it's emotional healing, whether it's spiritual healing, whether it's healing from a lack of, whether it's healing from relationships, from biases that drive behaviors that are not in alignment with who we are. And we just hold the space for this world to slow down a little bit and breathe into their choices as we move forward. And so it is. Amen. And I turn this over to Katie for their opening song.
Do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. In these moments I am given, in situations called to me, I now choose the path of living. I now choose what sets me free. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey. situation's cold to me. I now choose the path of living. I now choose what sets me free. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, in these moments I am given, in situations called to be, I now choose a path of living. I now choose what sets me free. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, I do what gives me life. Yes, I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, in these moments I am given, in situations cold to me, I now choose a path of living. I now choose what sets me free. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey, I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. I do what gives me life. Hey.
And welcome back to me. There are things for you to know, always things for you to know, right? We do it usually as announcements. While we continue to be safe, we are looking at how our facility can accommodate a congregation while following their CDC guidelines. And until we know we can keep you all safe because we love you so much, we will keep the building closed to groups of people. We are all working and available, and you can find out exactly how on the website. And we are looking at the safest way to re-enter into doing ministry, not necessarily exactly how it's been though, because we have awareness that we can do so much greater. So that is in process. It is in discussion, and we are tapping into some of the wisdom some of our church leaders carry in that, and we'll be doing some real work with that over the next few weeks. We hope, though, that although the building is closed, that you will join us in our virtual fellowship and our virtual garden after service today. Please go to the website, unityofmesa.org, and register now for the Zoom link if you haven't already done so. And please don't wait till the very end of service or we might miss you. We would love to have you join us. It's been so much fun to have different people from different places tap in. And we would love to have you just come on, and even if you're only there for a few minutes, just to say hi, wave to everybody, let us know you're alive and kicking. We would love to see your faces. I think that's what we miss the most, and it's because it's how we get fed as staff, is to be able to see you. So we'd love to have that happen. Also, if you have someone you would like to add to the prayer list, please go to our Unity Cares page under the Ministries tab for prayer request forms. And there you will also find information on direct prayer support and other spiritual support that we offer. Today, we are completing our series on Adyashanti's book, The Most Important Thing. And we only just touched the surface of this incredible book. So if you are still looking for something to read this summer, you can still order the book from Amazon through our website. Go to our bookstore page. We get some financial credit for that, and it's a way to support the church. Next Sunday, we will start having fun with a new theme, and this is called The Lessons from the Turtle. And I'm really excited about this one. It's lighthearted and yet deep at the same time. I realized today that if you were in our building, fellowship would have moved indoors and we'd all be crowded in that small little room because it is hot, isn't it? I hope right now that you all have been able to keep cool during the past week or 2 weeks. Our property caretaker, Andrea, is thankfully cool now too. It was a lot of work and an unexpected use of funds, but we had to replace the caretaker's apartment's air conditioner this week. It was so old, the air conditioner, not the caretaker, that the air conditioner was so old that they don't even make parts for it anymore. And we had several companies come out and take a look, and a couple of them said, let me see if I can find anything to just, as a replacement. And none of them could come up with anything. So we did the replacement. And we know that even though we're not physically in our buildings, we do continue to be responsible for the upkeep of the facility and to make sure the staff who are on site are in a safe situation. So we are so grateful for your financial gifts that support this spiritual home so that we might continue to enlighten, empower, and energize one another to uplift our world through a greater expression of God. And if you would like to do an additional gift towards that air conditioner, it would be greatly appreciated. We know there are many ways that you can give indirectly by ordering books to the website, as I've already mentioned. And adding Unity Church of the East Valley is your favorite charity on Smile Amazon and on Fry's Rewards. And directly through online giving, using the Give Plus app or by sending a check. And we pick up the mail every day. So all of this information and more can be found on our website, unityofmesa.org. Now, if you would take the gift of love in your hands and say with me our offering blessing. Together, divine love flowing through us blesses and multiplies all that we have, all that we give, and all that we receive. We thank you, Spirit of Abundance. And now let's prepare for meditation with Floyd.
It is a good time to come together in our various homes to worship together in spirit. I am a spiritual being choosing an awakened human experience. Now, if you'll begin to get comfortable in your chair, relax, and if you wish, place your hands in an open and receiving position in your lap, and gently close your eyes and take a few deep cleansing breaths. Breathe and relax into this quiet moment. Take time to pause and restore your natural balance. You are giving yourself a great gift. You're giving yourself the time to stop, to breathe, and to allow a prayerful attitude to enter your being right here and right now. Just be. In this moment, I rest in peace and quiet. Feel your body relax with ease. And as you notice your breathing and you feel your heartbeat, silently affirm in this moment, I need to do nothing. In this quiet moment, I need to do nothing. There may be mountains of things to do, worry to overcome, resistance to release. Yet in these quiet moments, the mountains can be moved, the worry eased, as the path to least resistance opens up. I need nothing. So breathe and allow your whole being to relax. As you let go, and we enter our time of silent meditation. Breathe deeply now as you return your attention to your surroundings. Take some time, become fully present, and become aware of the lingering feelings of ease and peace within as you continue on with your day. And so it is.
What you thinking about? I think you're doing alright. I think you're doing alright. I can see that the sun and the moon are doing alright. I think you're doing alright. Hey, with Unity of Mesa, what you think about? I think you're doing alright. I think you're doing alright. And I can see that the sun and the moon, the stars and the sky all shine. And I can see that the sun and the moon, the stars and the sky all shine. They shine with you. You shine and I shine, yes we do. You shine, I shine. You shine, I shine right now, yes. And you shine, I shine. And I can see that the sun and the moon, the stars and the sky all shine. And I can see that the sun and the moon, the stars and the sky all shine. They shine with you.
Thank you so much for that lovely song. We're just always blessed by your music. All right, so we're on our last week with the most important thing. And this is the time when we get to look back a little bit. And where did we start? We started with, so I started with 3 things at the beginning of this series. And I asked you to look at 3 things. Are you willing to go against the grain of race consciousness? Are you willing to be curious? Be really curious. Then are you willing to ask thick questions? Ask questions that are not easy to answer, but ones where you have to go a little bit deeper and look at that. And how has that happened for you over this period of staying at home, of sheltering in place a little bit, of watching this pandemic as we have tried to figure out the most effective way to walk through it. And then the third piece was, I'm looking because I have to look it up because I don't remember it exactly. But the third piece, I believe, was all about what are you in service to? That was the third piece. What are you willing to step up and do? And as you have spent time at home, many of you, not all of you, some of you have had to be out in the world and have had to figure out how to maneuver that world. Some of you have gotten ill, and that was COVID, and had to figure out how to maneuver that. Many of us have had to figure out how to maneuver dealing with a loved one in a facility and not being able to be with them, or dealing with loved ones who have gotten ill and had to go to the hospital and we can't be with them. So, you know, everyone I think has had to juggle some things because life has not been normal for us. And in that, what have you been of service to? Have you been of service to the fear? Have you been of service to buying into the race consciousness that is global about this? Have you bought into the divisions that are happening within our country? What is it that you have been of service to, and how is that how has that worked for you? Have you been of service to those who are in need? I know we've got several who have made masks. I know we have several who have volunteered to work in the adopted grandparent program. We've got several who volunteered to do calls to see how everyone's doing in the community. We know this community is full of people who are in service to humanity, I believe. And you're such a blessing. And then we come back to this book that has such depth in it. And, you know, Kathy spent lots of time talking about grace, the grace that Adyashanti talks about. And then Cassandra last weekend talked about finding heart, talked about what happens when all of the chatter just stops and how that heart just opens. And there's nothing but that divine love, Christ love. For me, and my spiritual experiences, it is that love that I sensed within Jesus as I met him in one of those moments when reality shifted, and I saw that oneness, had that oneness experience with Jesus. And there was a love there that was beyond words. And so, and many of us in this community have that. And sometimes you sense it and feel it, and other times our humanness gets in the way. And that's why our affirmation today is, I am a spiritual being. You are, we all are, each and every one of us on this planet, we are spiritual beings here on this planet. And we have choice. We have come in with choice, with free will. And so we have to choose if we want to have an awakened experience. And then we need to walk the path for that to happen. And this book has been a guide, a map, with lots of paths to go down, a map that we can maybe follow, because we've talked over and over again about when you go on a spiritual journey, it's really important to allow a mentor to be with you, to help you when you fall into some of the trappings, to reflect back to you, to ask you those questions. And I've been blessed during this time to do an SEE class that was not advertised to everybody. It was for three people in the community who have been on the SEE journey, and they're down to their last few classes. And one of the classes they needed was Eye of the Storm, and they were all working with it through spirit groups, and one through it with another minister who isn't able to teach SEE classes. And so I brought them together and we created an SEE class that was very appropriate for where they are in their journey. And it was that blessing to be able to walk with them and to be able to ask them those deep questions, those hard questions, those thick questions, and to watch how they are choosing to be awakened, to be aware of, to allow. I love this from Dr. Sue Morter. Her quote was, "I am the holy wholeness expressing on the surface of consciousness." And so when we say yes to allowing awakening of our experience, of having an awakened experience instead of just being in whatever comes at us, but to do it from an awakened state, from a state of awareness, then we are allowing our holy wholeness to express on the surface of consciousness. And when we can do that, the world shifts. Our world shifts for sure. And as our world shifts, it's that piece where you've got everybody standing together and I shift, and that person next to me, that person next to me, the one in front of me, they all energetically, that shifts them energetically, and then they shift others and they shift others as those energetic vibrations go out. So we, just by saying yes and being willing to do the study, being willing to do the being, sitting and being, not needing to do and make anything happen, but to just allow that shift to happen so that we are willing to say yes. And as we do that, then we look at life a little bit differently. So as we get to the end of the book, Adyashanti, the last 2 chapters, the quote at the beginning of his chapter on exploring birth, life, and death is, "At no moment is the wave something other than the ocean, and at no moment is the ocean something other than the wave." So in Unity, we teach that, trying to help people understand that if God is the ocean, we are the wave. A wave cannot be taken out of the ocean. It cannot be separated. At one point, the teaching was we are the drop of water, but a drop of water can be separated from the ocean. A wave is never separated. It washes up and it comes back in. It is always part of the ocean. It just shows up differently. It has different characteristics that show up, just like attributes, maybe different attributes, just like all of us. We are all humans on this planet, but we each show up differently, but we are all of the divine. And so when we look at thinking that at no moment is this spiritual being something other than God, and at no moment is God something other than the spiritual being. So with that, then I choose what to do with it. I choose. And when I start looking at birth, life, and death, which I can't imagine anyone having not thought about that at some level, as every day the news, which many of us probably aren't watching near as much of at this point, but every day we see numbers, we see statistics, and it's the number that everyone has been watching was the number of people who are ill, the number of people who die, and looking at those numbers to determine what is ours to do next as we look at the numbers of financial, the numbers of people in financial struggle with everything, the numbers of people who are dying, and looking at as society, how do we balance? What is the balance? How do we make those determinations? Watching the push-pull between those who are willing to just really stand in humanity is really important, and those who are willing to stand in, but humanity shows up in different ways, not just in the hospital dying. It's a struggle. It's a challenge. And we have to be able to ask the thick questions, isn't it? And so when we look at birth, living life, and then death, when we come in at birth, we are very awakened. There is an awareness that is there that gets covered, gets lost in the race consciousness, the understanding of our society. And we grow up and we become conditioned. And we've talked about this through the 5th agreement, really, the 4 agreements in the 5th agreement. And we become conditioned. And then we become reactive based on the conditioning. The conditioning creates biases that sometimes we know, sometimes we don't. And we looked at most of us probably saw the videos this week of the young lady in Central Park with her dog, young white lady who just went ballistic, basically. Whether it was intentional or something, my guess is she didn't even know what was driving her, that there was some bias in her belief, in her understanding, which was based on probably, could have been multiple things of not small man, not overweight or anything, but a very solid man, African American man, white woman, alone in the woods all of a sudden. Bias shows up probably based on all the news, and overreaction based on whatever her issues were, and the whole thing just exploded because of all the other things that have been happening and are ongoing and shouldn't be happening. And this is all coming to the light for some healing, some more healing, until we can finally stop and say, well, we've had enough as society, we need to shift this. And that is part of the awakening. Are we willing to look at what are we in service to? Are we in service to perpetuating the allowing of people interacting based on biases that they are not totally aware of? I had training this week, and it was interesting to start to look at, we all have bias based on what we are taught, what we experience, what we hear, what we see. And our job is to be awake enough to do our spiritual work, to do that self-reflection enough that we know what those biases are, so that we can choose, am I going to work from it and allow it to drive me, or am I going to say, no, that's not completely true? And so for the gentleman in that situation in the park, he had opportunity to have done all sorts of things. He chose to look at, this is not a comfortable situation for either of us. I am going to record, not necessarily because of that situation, but because he is part of a group that is trying to protect this area in the park. And they've been recording regularly people coming through with dogs and animals off lead, because it is a protected part of the park. So he chose to stay calm. He chose to, I'm sure he had some bias, probably had bias about dogs ripping up the place, about scaring off the wildlife in that protected part of Central Park. And yet he chose to stay very calm, very collected, and not let his bias drive the situation into greater escalation, but not running from it either. And so what do we do with our biases? What do we do with those embedded beliefs about how life is supposed to look like? And how does that drive how we live? How does that drive what is the most important thing for us? Are our biases taking us out of the most important thing in our life? Are the biases, are we so aware of our bias that we can say, I have choice. I have choice to act from awakened experience, or to just keep on sleeping and just going right along with whatever I'm being driven by. Now I've got this little foster pup in my house now. He's probably about 2 years old. And there are times when his behavior is amazing. And then there are other times when his instinctual drives or his bias based on the abuse that he had, he's a rescue dog, keep him from being able to be an acceptable social dog in the house. And so working with that and helping him relearn that, and that's what we all get to do. We all get to look at what our biases are. So in the training I did, we were asked, so what might your bias be when you're interviewing people who want to go into ministry? And starting to think, well, what are my biases that would impact how I would interview and what my questions are? So as we start to be willing to ask those fit questions, are we willing to look at what is the bias that might be driving the questions we develop? And as we look at how we come back together and we start to engage more, and some of you may be fully engaged already, and I know many of you are going, I'm not leaving my house still. You know, and I know I'm being careful because I'm finally able to see my mom. I've seen her twice now since we locked down, and she's in memory care, and we can meet outside for a few minutes with me covered up in that and keep our distance. And I do want to honor that community and make sure I don't dare take anything to her. So I'm being really careful. And that is from a place of awakenedness, not from a place of, oh, I want to see my mom and it's my right and I'm going to go in and do that, right? It's that awareness that there's so much more, that I am an integral part of this human experience for everyone that I come into contact with. And I get to choose if I'm willing to do the work so that I can have awareness, so that I can see a different perspective, so that I am in a better place to be able to help society go through. So we are at the end of this book. It is a book that is written at multiple levels. And I invite you, if you've got free time, to sit down with this book. Pick it up from Amazon. Oh, they're delivered to your door. And read it, and then come back to it later. I believe that there is so much in this book that can help you walk through a spiritual journey. And my assumption, so I'm making some assumptions because you wouldn't be listening to this if you weren't curious and you weren't exploring something beyond just the human experience, the unawakened human experience, that you are here because their spiritual being that you are is saying, so let me out, let me out, let me shine, let my heart shine, let me shine, let me be the holy wholeness expressing on the surface of consciousness. Let me be that. And so I invite you to look at, how are you being the holy wholeness expressing on the surface of consciousness? How are you being the wave in the ocean? And you don't need to be anything else. You don't need to make anything happen. You can be, and you can allow your choices to come from your beingness, your spiritual beingness, as opposed to from the outer. That doesn't mean we don't look at the science, that we don't gather information, but we allow the final word to come from our beingness. And it's only truly authentic beingness if we're doing the spiritual work. If we're just going, oh, I can close my eyes for a minute and then I know, boom. If you haven't done any meditating, you haven't done anything like that, probably not. So invite you, if you've been able to find that meditative practice during this little bit slower time period, keep it up, keep it up. And if not, I invite you to, go to your bedroom 5 minutes early and just sit in silence for 5 minutes. And remember, the chatter is the chatter. And at some point, it just drops off. It's kind of like when you're doing stretching, when you're working on flexibility. If you're sitting kind of in a straddle, trying to get your nose down on the ground in front of you, You know, you work and you work and you work, and you even may have somebody press a little bit on your back as you push back against it. You have some resistance against it. And then when you let go of the resistance, you drop down a little bit farther. I coached gymnastics, so it was, you know, we could help those kids do those splits. And it's the same thing when we push against and then we let go, we settle into it and we shift. And can you make that shift? So it's been, for me, it's been a wonderful book to read. Hope you enjoyed some of the talk. Hope today helped you a little bit, looking at some biases, looking at perspectives, looking at what are some of your biases as we have the opportunity to change the world through an election coming up in several months. What are you willing to be in service to? What are you willing to support? What are you willing to continue with? And as we move back into community, somewhat as we knew it, I don't think it'll ever go completely back to as we knew it, but as we move back into community, what are you willing to be open to? What are you willing to look at? Can we do this differently? And remember, what you're missing, what activity you're missing within the church community, what else could give you the same feeling? How could something be done differently that would give you the same feeling that you're missing from that activity if we're not able to go back to that activity as quick as all of us would like? So I love you all. It's been an honor to be able to still communicate with you, even though for me this is really strange because I'm talking to myself in the screen. But I'm thinking of all of you guys. I'm seeing faces, you know, and especially those of you who have joined us in the Zoom call. It really helps us to go, oh yeah, these are the people we're working with and that we're walking with. And thank you for staying in contact with us. Blessings. Namaste. Now we have a closing song.
All right. Wake up, lay down the burden, leave it alone. It's time to move on. Step up with a light heart, shine it all around and do your part. With a word like a prayer, send it out everywhere, it will grow. And the truth of this force leads us back to the source we all know. Live out the best of your life. Live out the best of your life. Take a chance and reap the reward. It's yours to be had, what you're looking for. Make it up as you go along. No one can say what's right or what is wrong. With the words like a prayer, send it out everywhere, it will grow. And the truth of this force leads us back to the source we all know. Live out the best of your life. 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 the words like a prayer, send it out everywhere. We will grow, oh, we will grow. And the truth of this force leads us back to the source. We all know it. With the word like a prayer, send it out everywhere. We will grow, oh, we will grow. And the truth of this force leads us back to the source. We all know it. Live out the best of your life. 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 Here we go. Live out the best of your
And thank you, Katie and Andrew, for that delightful song. We've been so blessed by your presence with us. And now we close out with our prayer for protection, and we go forth choosing whether or not we want to have awakened human experiences or if we just want to buy into that which is already out in the universe, the collective consciousness, or if we want to sit into that awakening experience. And we know that the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us, the power of God protects us, and the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is. And so it is. Amen. Have a blessed week, everyone. Hope we see you on the Zoom call. Bye.